Hello everyone, welcome to Webtoon Book Club. And this has been a pain. Where I have been fighting OBS for the past hour now, and it's still not working properly. I know it's recording game footage, because I've tested that out, but the preview screen is frozen. It's not moving, it is just completely frozen. And I don't know why, and I don't know how to fix that. So if anybody could tell me how to fix that, that would be great. Now, this is now my second attempt at recording because I keep getting interruptions. And the preview screen jumped ahead, and it's now frozen again. But it might just be because OBS really doesn't like Transport Fever 2. It hates this game a lot. It has never worked one time. Not once has this ever worked correctly. But regardless, let's get on with the episode. Because today's episode is Lessa 2. Which, if you would have looked in the stories list for the previous episode, or even as far back as you want, it was never on the list. Because I had not read and finished it at that point. But I have now. And this is an exception that I'm making just for this episode. I don't know if I'll ever do that again. Mainly because having to read a story and finish it within a week is already a bit of a challenge. Luckily, something like Lessa 2, by Pogo, by the way, is a little bit of an easier thing because it's 109 episodes, but the episodes are relatively short. It could take you about maybe 2 to 5 minutes to read through them each. Of course, that always depends on your own reading speed. For me, that's about how long. So, let's get into it. So our story begins with a bit of a telling of what happened between the finishing of the first season and this one. Which was the artificial suns going out over Hexagon City, and then the demons appearing and them basically slaughtering everybody. So, now humanity has lost control of what is apparently an isolated situation. Because the first season kind of sets up like, oh, this is a worldwide event. But season 2 kind of reestablishes that, no, this is kind of an isolated event on a small little island. So, this small little island, well, maybe not small, but it is an island. So, this event happened there. Oh, okay. My OBS preview just snapped into actually showing what's happening on the game screen. Anyway. So, Hexagon City has now been broken up into 8 zones, and humans mostly live on the outskirts in Zone 7 and 8. So, with that, our story begins with a couple of people trying to face off against some demons, but the demons showed to be a little bit too strong for them, but in comes our characters Ray and his sister Lucy. Yes, because I've read this recently, I can remember people's names now. Mostly. And they save the group from being killed and take out the demons. So with that, they now move on. They have a plan to take out Eris in Zone 1, who is the main villain. Which, again, I can remember the name, unlike last time, as the only name I remembered last time was Lessa. So, they make it to a human resistance camp. And Lucy hides her horns to try and not raise suspicion, but the leader of the camp gets pretty suspicious about the hood. But she's just outright shows them, yes, I'm a demon. Here, look at it. Gaw. If you want us to leave, we'll leave. And they're just like, no, you fought to protect things, so you can stay. But just as long as nobody else finds out. But that doesn't last long, as demons then hunt down or arrive at the camp. And those two fight them off. And manage to, well, get rid of them. And because Lucy showed that she's here to protect the people, she's here to protect the humans and not fight with the and fight against the demons, she actually gains their respect. Which isn't really important because it only goes on for like another chapter, or it only goes on for like a few episodes or so. So off they go, and they meet up with the doctor from well, there's two doctors, the male doctor and the female doctor. They meet up with the male doctor in right after that. But we do get a look at what Lessa's up to, which is trying to find Ray after many years. And he has red hair, which we find out is not from dyeing it, but because he hasn't washed in a while. So it's just very, very dirty. But in his haste, he ends up leaving his boot behind and also getting hit by a door. So with that, the group finds the boot, and thinks maybe they'll meet up with him later, or maybe he's trying to send them a message of some kind. When in reality, he was just in a rush and forgot his boot. I will say, if there's anything this author does well, it is very mild comedy. He does that pretty well. So with that, the group moves on, and they make it to zone. Well, no, they get into zone 7, where they then meet up with a guy, Lexer. Yeah, Lexer, who is a weapons specialist, inventor. He makes weapons that can kill demons. And they don't want him tagging along, but he's very insistent to tag along. So they eventually just let him. And at first they say it's like they're not going to be responsible for his safety, but eventually he does prove his worth. So, oh my God. So he helps them get through Zone 6 and then into Zone 5, who is led by the one demon girl we were introduced to in Season 1, who worked alongside Lucy over odd jobs. So, I say so way too much. I need to find a better transitioner. Oh well. After that, I should stop touching things. I'm just making a mess and a lot of noise. So after that, what the heck? Where was I? Oh yeah. She gets a message of the intruders being our group. Oh no. Like always, I skipped over something. In zone... No, this was right. So she gets a message of the intruders being our group coming in, and she goes to deal with them. So while the most of the group is dealing with they meet back up with also the female doctor and her assistant. So the leader of Zone 5 tries to go deal with the group, and she sends off other demons to deal with everybody else, while she has a fight with Lucy. And we get revealed there to two things. One, the Generation 3 demons, which includes Lucy and this other girl, were experimented on before and now can unlock higher levels of power and like a transformation thing. And also, these experimented demons, when they die, turn into these giant monsters that they just refer to as dogs. And apparently, the more human these dogs look, the more valuable they are. So, Lucy goes into like this stronger form, but soon ends up passing out, and the other demon girl is standing over her, probably about ready to get the final blow, but Lessa steps in and stops that from happening, and basically gives her the option of leave now and never threaten us again. And she agrees to that for now. But we will see her again. So now that Les is back with the rest of the group, we then learn some background. And that just basically involves that Ray, a few years prior, decided to jump off of a building so he can go meet Ra in heaven, or whatever they call it in this. And Ra basically just tells him, well, you died. You're not going back, you died. And after some chatter, but they does send him back pretty much as a more fully realized servant of Ra, or something. But we also find some background on Lessa, where there's actually now, if you recall back in season 1, there was 2 Lessas. The one we followed and the one that was like locked up in a dungeon. So that one is Dark Lessa. And Dark Lessa is the original Lessa. Where at the beginning of time, she existed basically as a being that had a black hole for a stomach. And Ra wanted to make her happy, so he created the earth and people after her image and showed it to her. But she didn't really seem to have much of an impressment or a reaction to it. So to try and stop her from basically destroying everything, he split her power and put the power that he removed into a mountain goat. And that mountain goat eventually became the Lessa we all know and follow in the story. Yeah, follow along with in the story. So, with that bit of information, we basically just need to know Lessa is a mountain goat, and Dark Lessa wants to basically reunite with her other half. Or at least have some vessel of some kind. Oh, I should probably... I had this little box on the whole time. And OBS froze again. So with that little bit of information, the gang kind of just goes through Zone 4 without much actually happening. And gets to Zone 3, where they're then ambushed by demons. And once the fight is over, they find all the women are gone. The female doctor and Lucy were kidnapped during the brawl. And they were taken to the castle of the leader of Zone 3, who is Belle, from Season 1. I think it was Belle. I'm just going to say Belle. And Belle wants to turn them into her dolls, which doesn't actually mean that they're turning into actual dolls more than they're going to be treated as dolls. So they'll be dressed up and look pretty, which is apparently so that they'll be added to her collection, which doesn't actually end up happening, because Belle has a collection of basically young girls that are called her dolls. So Lexer has a plan, but he needs a computer. So they go into a house that has a computer, and it's also occupied by a little demon girl and her aunt. But the aunt is a bit delusional, or she's a bit out of it. And the little girl seems to be nice. And kind of just lets them do their thing. So, Lexer's plan is that he's been planting little markers all along each section wall that is open, to allow all the people to basically make their way from the outside of the zones to the inside. And that plan will go off once they take care of Eris and all the zone leaders. And now that I think about it, this story plays out a lot like a video game. Just make your way through the levels as each boss gets stronger and stronger. Interesting. So, they need to get back Lucy and the doctor, so all the guys help this little girl, who is apparently trying out to become one of Belle's dolls, to get into their castle, and Lessa is kind of split off from the group and peeled away from the group, and the aunt is also peeled away from the group. Lexter just doesn't go. Yeah, Lexter isn't allowed to follow Ray and the little girl through a door, and once those two go through that door, they're standing above a big hole, which the little girl then pushes Ray into. So she was kind of in cahoots with the whole thing, and Belle knew they were there because she has cameras everywhere. So with that, the little girl becomes a dolled up doll, but then it's revealed that the aunt that was not allowed to continue on with them was led down there was 2 doors, an in and an out, and she was led to the outdoor, which leads to a furnace. Yeah, she was burned and turned to ashes. And when the little girl finds out about this, she's of course very distraught and extremely upset. And we never see her or know anything about her again, because it's not that important after that. I think it's more in the case of, well, you kind of got your retribution for what you have tried to do. Of course, that also seems really harsh. I don't know. Whatever. So, with continuing, Lucy manages to break away and is kind of just going about the castle trying to get to the doctor. And the doctor, at some point, was face to face with Belle, and we find out later that she was forced to consume the vapor. The vapor that turns them people into demons. While the rest of our gang manages to escape from their traps and all meets back up to try and save Lucy, but Lucy ends up having to fight the other demon girl again. And while this time she doesn't pass out, and she does kind of lose the fight, she does manage to win over this other girl by kind of showing her that things don't have to be this way. So once he convinces her, they both stand up against Belle. But because Belle is a second generation, she is way far stronger than both of them, even in their enhanced forms. So the other girl ends up dying in the fight and becoming a dog. But because of her emotions, she's still able to stand against Belle, have enough consciousness to stand against Belle. And manages to basically take care of Belle. Also, Lexer planted explosives all over the castle, and forgot how much time was on the timer. So it ends up blowing up while they're still inside. But everybody manages to escape. But because the female doctor has now passed out, and they're not entirely sure why at that moment, they all go to the close by university university hospital. And that's when they find out that she's turning into a demon. So the other doctor tries to figure out if he can find a way to reverse the demonization. And I will tell you right now, that plot point goes absolutely nowhere. This is pretty much the last time we see these characters. So to give form, Lessa, Lexer, and Ray are gonna go off to Zone 2, while the others stay in the hospital. When the female doctor finally wakes up, she woke up from a horrible nightmare, which might have also been a bit of a premonition of some kind. Or something. Basically, Dark Lessa was talking through her, but then Dark Lessa transferred over to Lucy, and Lucy wants to open herself up to be the vessel for Dark Lessa. This happens a little bit later in the story, but that's basically all that happens with these characters. So not much really happens from that point forward with them until the literal last episode. So we'll get back to them at the end. So the three guys Lessa ends up opening a portal that transports them into Zone 2, and right on top of the zone leader's mansion, who is a little girl who's not a demon, but does run a fighting club of some kind. And the reason why she was able to run a fighting club, we learned, is because when the whole demon attack happened, two demons were arguing with each other about who was going to kill her, and she just suggested, why don't you fight each other and decide that way? And that's what they did. And then others joined in, and it ended up turning into an entire business for her. And the whole thing is, the fighting club is whoever can win the tournaments held there will become part of the guard for Eris in Zone 1. So our characters go through, Ray and Lessa go through the fighting tournament. Lexter's just there. And, of course, the overpowering, in Lessa being a god, and Ray having the power of a god, are the only two left standing in the tournament. But there can only be one winner, and so those two end up fighting each other, which we find is because Ray doesn't want Lessa to go to Zone 1 because he was told by Ra that Lessa would die if he did. So he's trying to prevent a horrible tragedy. But after an angel gets involved during the fight, mainly by basically freezing time or slowing it down to such a degree that it's like, I think it was like 1/100th of a second. So literally not even a blink of the eye. And Ray's convinced to stand down, and let Lessa go. Which, Ray's not going to allow that for too much. So Lessa gets escorted to Zone 1 and then gets to take a tour through there. While Ray comes up with a plan to basically sneak into Zone 1 by taking one of the little girl's cars and driving it to the gate. And then ambushing the gate guards. While Lexer has his own plan to try and activate his pathway for people, and the little girl wants to help with that, because she doesn't want to become a demon, and she's only doing this whole fight club thing for her own survival. And the demons haven't gone after her because she's convinced them that she'll become a demon when she's an adult. But she really doesn't have an actual plan for that. But the demons kind of betray her shortly after. Yeah, Lecter entrusts the little girl with a flash drive that will activate the program that will send out the message for the open pathway. But the demons end up betraying the girl and locking her in her room. She's able to later then escape by just saying she needs to use the bathroom after being there for like 2 days. But what she does is she sneaks out, gets in a car, crashes it into the woods. All the demons go to investigate that crash, while she then runs back inside to activate the pathway. So, before that all happens, Ray makes it inside Zone 1. Lessa meets Eris and then starts to fight him, and unfortunately ends up dying from it, as what Raw saw would happen. And Ray ends up finding his dead body and then going back and trying to carry him to someplace a little safer. Well, Lexter ends up getting caught by a demon and tries to fight him. And of course, Lecter's just a guy who doesn't really have that level of strength to him. And he gets beat up a bit. And we'll be back to him in a second. So Dark Lessa doesn't want regular Lessa to die and wants Eris to be taken out. So he transports Lessa into the past, or I guess some type of formation of such, or whatever. I don't know. I'm a bit confused on what all happened there. Oh, I was confused by the thing that said concrete gate, no pillar. It was just because of where the mouse is positioned. Ignore it. So he sends him back to the past, basically when he first met Eris. And Dark Lessa wants him to kill Eris so he could, like, change the timeline of events or something. I don't know. But he can't bring himself to do it. So instead he's going to go stab himself. But Eris then jumps in the way and then ends up getting stabbed. And dies. Which I guess it was just a test because Eris isn't actually dead and Lessa is brought back to life. So now we cut back to Lecter fighting that demon, and the demon basically does a bit of a monologue and saying it's like, yeah, you're done for. But Lecter does something sneaky, which is turning on the sun. Because the inner zones from 3 to 1 are blanketed in artificial skies and suns. But Lecter has the control to turn them up and make them act like the real, and to turn them off and turn them on. So he basically makes the real sun appear in the sky. And the reason he's able to do that is because he worked with his uncle, who was a part of the project to create the artificial suns. So he actually has the controls to mess with those things. So he basically shows the real sun to all the demons, and all the demons burn up and die. The doctor, as far as I'm aware, doesn't. But Lucy does. And we'll get back. I'll say it now. Lucy ends up getting crisped and, well, I guess it dies and then turns into a big monster. But her form she takes is of that of a perfect human. Oh yeah, I guess I didn't explain. With the dogs, the more human they looked, the more valuable they were. But Lucy's form is that of a pretty much perfect human, and ends up reaching into the sky to be accepted by Dark Lessa and becoming a part of Dark Lessa. I don't know. That really wasn't something that was really explained all that well, because it was like one of the ending scenes. It's weird. While Ray faces Eris and fishes him off, and we discover that Ray doesn't just have the power of Raw, he is Raw. The true form of Raw is what Ray has. And so Eris is thus punished with not being allowed to reincarnate once he dies, as he's turned back into a child, and Les is gonna look over him. Yeah, the ending of this gets a little weird. It makes sense in reading, and it's perfectly fine, but going through it like this, it's a bit strange. But that's lesson 2. It's a big action story. There are a lot of action scenes. It's a good story. The writing is good. The art is very stylistic. Well, it's kind of like an oil painting. Like, it just has a lot of like strokes and colors and flares to it. Like, it's a very colorful story. Like, it is a beautiful piece of art. And I like this story a lot. This was a good story. And even though I had to kind of rush read through it to get it ready to make this episode for, it is still a good story. It's a pretty quick read. It's a kind of quick read. But I recommend it. I recommend it very highly. So, I probably won't be doing this suggestion again, but somebody wanted it. Somebody wanted it, and I was willing to oblige just because it was something that was easy to get through. But with that is the end of this episode. Check out Lessa 2. It's a good read. Check out the whole series. It's all a good read. Pogo did a great work on this. So with that, the list of stories are in the description. Vote on which one you would like me to talk about next in the comments. And I'll see you all next time.